Well, here we are, Season 7, Disc 5, Episode 270. Who knew? Who knew we would get this far when I started this 170 episodes ago? I've done them all, so please go check them all out. So this week we have our last 7 episodes, the final episodes of Star Trek Next Generation. And we did Mass last week. Today we're doing Eye of the Beholder. Next week we're doing Genesis, Journey's End the week after, and then we start on the final disc 6 and 7. There is no overview for this. We start off right away with our dialogue. So apparently there's something going on that we don't know about. Let's find out. The ship is on red alert. We are losing containment in the starboard nacelle tube. Picard said, try to get more power to the field quarters. Aye, sir. Picard calls LaForge. And I've said this before, and I'll probably continue saying this for a really long time. And those of you fans, just let it go. But they go like this, or they just talk to the air. They just say, hey, LaForge. And automatically the computer knows to talk to them in engineering. Or wherever LaForge is, it just automatically knows. I don't know if that technology will ever exist in for us without the old tappy tap. Hey, computer, get me to LaForge, or tap a button entering his comlink badge or something. I don't know if we'll ever be able to talk to the air like they do. Just hey, LaForge, or computer, contact LaForge in engineering. None of that ever. They just start talking to the air. I'm just saying. So then we switch to engineering. Geordi says, I can't shut down the plasma injectors. Somebody's locked out the controls. Data says the plasma venting system has engaged. Riker and Worf are in the Jeffries tube. They're climbing up and down. Picard says, release the exterior hull plate. We may have to jettison the core. Data says, Isa. And then we go back to Riker. So then Worf and Riker reach their destination. And they see somebody. A woman says he's locked out the controls, but before we knew what was happening, he stepped up to the walkway. Riker and Worf look up. See if you can shut down the plasma flow, Riker says to Worf. And Riker's talking to the woman. Let's see what's going on. So, she says, he locked out the controls before we knew what was happening. He stepped up onto the walkway. Like I said before, Riker says to Worf, see if you can shut down the plasma cores. She just says, I'm afraid if we get any closer, he'll jump through the force field. And they start talking to, the guy's name is Dan, I guess. It's me, Will Riker. I was here yesterday. And the man says, I didn't want to do it, but I saw them and they laughed at me. They laughed. So Riker goes up to talk to him. So Riker slowly creeps up the stairs. Tell me what happened. Maybe I can help. I know what I have to do. And he jumps. So then they're in the ready room, and Riker's feeling a little guilty that he could have grabbed the guy or something and held on to him. A few more seconds, I could have saved his life. Worf, Commander says, Commander, you did everything you could. It was not your fault. It was strange. I felt as if he didn't recognize me. Although I was just with him the other day, I was supervising the tube refit. How did he seem then? Fine, I complimented on the refit done faster than I expected. He was pleased that I noticed. Troi says, I met with him about 6 weeks ago during the crew evals. He was very positive, looking forward to being posted to the nacelle tube. He was a good officer with a fine career ahead of him. I don't understand why he did what he did. In my years as a starship captain, I have to notify many parents of the loss of loved ones, but never a suicide. I would like to be able to offer Lieutenant Kwan's parents some explanation of what happened, to try to help them make sense of this. Maybe he left a message of some kind, Worf says, explaining why he did it. I would like you two to piece together a picture of his last few days. Troi said if he made any personal logs, I might be able to help look through them. You're authorized to do so. Troi and Worf leave. The Forge. Oh, the old voiceover. Let me speak to Captain LaForge. I've just finished my damage assessment, he says. We should be able to get underway within the hour. Then we're back in engineering, and Geordi and Data are having a talk about self-preservation. Geordi said, would you agree... Data says to Geordi, would you agree that its instinct for self-preservation is shared by most forms? I say it's probably the most basic instinct, Data. That being the case, I find it difficult to understand why someone would deliberately terminate their own existence. I don't know, Data. All I can think is that maybe Lieutenant Kwan felt there was something wrong in his life, something he felt powerless to fix. I believe I understand. I have been in a similar situation. Jodi's like, huh? Really? The first months following my activation were a difficult period for me. There were many problems associated with my becoming sentient, because your neural net was still forming. As I acquired new skills, new pathways would form, replacing other less complex pathways. It was very disorienting. I bet. As my systems grew, I became increasingly difficult to integrate new pathways into my existing neural net. The probability of cascade failure grew with each additional pathway. I came to the conclusion it would be safer and easier to shut down and start again. Yeah, but if you'd done that, you wouldn't have remembered any of the things that happened to you. In a way, it would be like committing suicide. So what did you do? I decided against the procedure. I chose instead to treat the problems I was having with the systems as challenges to overcome, rather than obstacles to be avoided. That's a great way of looking at things, Data. I wish Lieutenant Kwan had been able to look at his problems that way, too. So then Troi and Worf are in Kwan's apartment, and they go through all of his stuff. They even access his personal logs, and he's talking positively about meeting up with his girlfriend. No indications of sorrow or anything's wrong. So then Troi talks to his girlfriend, and she talks about spending time with him, and she said there was nothing wrong until about 2 nights ago. We were planning our next shore leave together. Did he mention anything about what happened recently? Anything that might have upset him? No, not really. He did say something about work, about Lieutenant Nara, but it wasn't anything serious. She's his superior officer in the cell tube. Yes, Dan sensed that she felt threatened by him, though she thought he was after her position. Was he prone to mood swings or depression? No, but he was very sensitive to other people's moods. He used to look at me and know exactly what I was feeling. I always loved that about him. Well, Napians are partially empathic. He may have inherited some of his mother's abilities. He used to tease me that when I met her, I wouldn't be able to get away with anything. Dan and I knew each other for over 2 years, but we didn't get together until a few months ago. We took it slow. We thought we had all the time in the world. Something must have happened to him, counselor. Something terrible. It's not like him to have taken his own life. We have to find out. So, Troi goes down to talk to his supervisor, Nara, and she's questioning her. Did his behavior change recently? No. I've been going over the last few days of my mind trying to see if I missed any warning signs. It seems this is something just in him snapped. She said, how was his performance? Excellent. He knew this ship better than most people, probably because he helped build it back in Utopia. Did he get along with his coworkers? She said yes, he was ambitious. He came in with all sorts of ideas about how to do things, some of them very good, but not all. No. But after he settled in, we got along fine. She goes up to his station and she comes back down, and something did something to Troi when she went up to his station. So she goes up to the nacelle doors where he was, and she gets all those feelings too. So then she's back in sick bay. I don't know how to describe it. I was suddenly overwhelmed by a flood of emotions, fear, rage, panic, and the sensation didn't seem to be coming from any person. It was just there in the room. Whose emotions were they? I thought you said you were alone. I was. I scanned the area. I found no anomalous readings. How could you get an empathic impression from an empty room? I don't know. Could you, Crusher? Dr. Crusher says, could the fact that Lieutenant Kwan was partially empathic have anything to do with it? What do you mean? I'm not sure, but certainly the feelings Troy described are consistent with suicide. Could his death have been some kind of empathic echo? I don't see how, but if I went back to the nacelle tube, I might get a better sense of what I experienced. Dr. Crusher says, I don't think I'd recommend that right now. You're showing elevated levels of psilocybin. What is psilocybin? Psilocybine. She says, it's a neurotransmitter involved in telepath. The experience overwhelmed her the first time. I think you should wait until your levels return to normal. How long? 3 or 4 hours. This time I want someone with you, Riker says. Worf says, I'll accompany you, counselor. So, Worf and Troi are in her quarters. And I hate when the fact that they don't show the two people sitting there talking to each other. So we're in Troy's face, then we're in Worf's face, then we're in Troy's face, then we're in Worf's face. So there's really no dual thing. So uh she's sitting down with Worf. Counselor, have you found anything in Lieutenant Kwan's logs? Troy says, everything I've read suggests that he was well adjusted and optimistic. It just doesn't make any sense. Can I get you anything? She gets herself a tea. I've been thinking about what happened to me in the Nestle tube, whether it was an empathic echo left by Kwan's death. In the past, have your empathic experiences always involved the physical presence of another person? Yes, I'm always sure. What do you mean, sure? Well, when I was young, my grandfather used to tell me stories about the fire. I would close my eyes and listen to his mind for hours on end. He would tell you these stories telepathically. My grandfather rarely spoke. He said that was for off-worlders and people who didn't know any better. Now, the only time I can remember his stories is when I go home and sit by the fireplace. Sometimes when I'm alone, there is almost as if I can hear his voice inside my head. And they talk about other stuff. And then there's a voiceover from the captain. Captain's log, Stardate. We've arrived at Starbase 328 on schedule. After taking aboard medical supplies, we will depart for Barson 2. And then we go to... So then Riker is off duty and he's in 10 forward with a woman. And Worf sees him with the woman. And Worf asks him, are you involved with her? I'm not sure yet. Why? Are you interested? No, but if I were, I would, of course, to discuss the situation with you before proceeding further. I appreciate it, but it really wouldn't be necessary. I mean, I would never want to come between you and someone you were involved in or ever have been involved with. Riker's like, is there some particular that you're talking about? No, there is someone in particular you would rather not I be involved with. Mr. Worf, you sound like a man who's asking a friend if he can start dating a sister. No, never mind. I was just thinking about it. He's thinking about Troi. He's thinking about dating Troi. Oh, good God. Why did the writers go this way? Why? So then Worf and Troi go to the nacelle thing. And it does something to them. I don't know what. Troi sees this man in her vision. She also sees these people in her vision. So then Troi is talking to the rest of the gang here. Yes, I think I do. There was a tool crate on the floor. It was labeled Utopia, the shipyard where the Enterprise was built. Clearly, this was much more than an empathic echo. It seems that you were actually seeing something that happened in the control room 8 years ago. Everyone was looking directly at me, but it was as though I was seeing through someone else's. Lieutenant Kwan's was particularly empathic. Maybe you're seeing it through his eyes. It's possible, but I don't see how it could have happened. Well, put that one aside for the moment. Let's assume by some unexplained phenomenon you witnessed an event that occurred to Lieutenant Kwan. Those faces you saw, did you recognize any of them? I've never seen the woman before, or the man who was with her. But there was someone else, a man. He was staring at me in the most peculiar way. He had reddish hair. He did seem familiar to me, but it's all hazy. It's like I'm trying to remember a dream. There was a woman who was frightened, and then you saw her again laughing at Kwan. What does it all mean? I don't know, but something terrible happened in there. So, Crusher's going to give her something to help her with her deficephaline, whatever the hell that stuff is. And we're gonna do it. Go to the bridge now. So then Troi is going through personnel files. Um, so the Vander man is masquerading as Darren Wallace. I apologize for being late. The viral medicines we are transporting to Baron 2 require special security measures to ensure that they are properly contained. Have you found anything? No, there were literally thousands of people in the building where the Enterprise was built. Perhaps if you narrow down the search, I think I have. The man who looked familiar to me may have served aboard the Enterprise in the last 7 years. I've asked the computer to limit it to personnel who served at Utopia and on the Enterprise. Ensign Salvatore, he transferred over a year ago. Lieutenant Ziff, she's in quantum mechanics. That's him. Lieutenant Bierce, he came aboard 6 months ago. Let's go see. So they talked to him. You were a lieutenant supervisor at Utopia. That's right. I was sorry to hear what happened. Did you ever spend time in the nacelle control room? I worked all over the ship. In fact, I remember running a power conduit right behind this wall here. Were you ever in the cell room at the same time as Lieutenant Kwan? It was a long time ago. People were working all over the place. So you don't remember? I'm sorry, I don't. Do you recall anything unusual happening there? How? An altercation, possibly involving Kwan. No, nothing like that. The way I remember it was things were pretty smoothly. But what is this all about, if I don't mind asking? Not at all. I was in the cell room and I had an empathic experience. We believe the council may have been seeing an event that happened 8 years ago. I saw you there. Do you have any idea why? I'm afraid I don't. Lieutenant, are you aware that I can sense when someone's telling the truth? I've heard that. That I'm sure that if you remember anything that might be relevant, you'll contact me. She thinks he's lying and he's not telling her what she wants to know. Then she comes out and says, I was wrong. God, the lighting on this computer is horrible. She said she could not read him at all. Period. End. She said, we've got to look into this more. So then they're in Troy's quarters. It's going to take a half hour for the transmission to be completed. Perhaps we continue this in the morning. And they end up in bed? Oh, good God, really? So then she's seeing the doctor and she's getting something that'll help with the empathic. And her and WORF comes in and he's a little friendlier than normal. Then Troi goes back to the nacelles, but she's with Data this time. And Geordie's up there looking for stuff too. He's not finding anything. So she tells him she remembers the conduit here. He removes something and she gets a flash. Then Geordie and Data find organic matter in there. Troi sees this woman. Then she sees this man. Then we're back in sickbay again. She's given her a dosage of the medicine. The bone fragments are definitely human. I sequenced a DNA sample. I sent see if I can match it to Starfleet records. So Worf goes over to talk to Calloway, and I say these fragments have been in the wall about 7 or 8 years. You said something happened when the panel was open? Yes. I wonder if the fragments themselves could have somehow triggered your experience. I'll run a Renaissance scan if anything turns up. And Calloway finds a match. It's the woman that Troi saw. She was reported missing from Utopia Planet on stardate 409872 8 years ago. How did her body become embedded in the bulkhead? There was some kind of accident, or maybe she was killed and the murderer hid her remains. Something's not right. Pull up Lieutenant Kwan's service records. I thought he didn't arrive on the ship till 6 months after Finn's death. So she figures out that she was seeing things through Finn's eyes. So then these two have the day after talk. I don't know how else to say it. Do you regret what happened last night? No, of course not. Are you sure? Because I don't want to jeopardize our friendship. Deanna, I do not regret being with you. What is wrong? I'm not feeling myself. Maybe it's inhibitor. I'm used to sensing people were feeling, and now I can't. Perhaps I should talk to Pierce alone. That might be a good idea. I'll meet you in the quarters. I'll be waiting for you. I don't get it. I'm not comfortable with this. So then Pierce goes to her quarters and he tells her that Worf sent him. So Troi doesn't feel comfortable. So she calls to security. In the meantime, she asks the computer where Worf is, and he's supposedly in another woman's quarters. But it just doesn't make a hill of beans of sense. So then she goes to Worf quarters and finds this. And she goes up and she's gonna go commit suicide like the other guy did. And then Worf comes up and stops her. So then they're in the meeting room. It all seems so real to me. I can't believe that everything I experienced just happened in those few seconds. It appears Counselor was correct. Pierce was partially telepathic. His maternal grandmother was born Beta Z. What else have you found out? According to Starfleet records, Pierce and the other person's counselor, Troi identified, were killed in an accidental plasma discharge 8 years ago. The bodies were never found. I don't believe it was an accident. I think Lieutenant Pierce found out about the other two were having an affair. He lost control and killed them. Afterwards, he probably activated the plasma beam and threw himself into it. The plasma discharge would have been obliterated any evidence that it was murder. Jody says, I've scanned behind the counselor panel behind Counselor Troi told me to. I didn't find any bone fragments, but I did find traces of cellular residue showing some kind of posionic trace. Maybe that when Lieutenant Pierce was struck by the plasma stream, the subspace energy present there imprinted his empathic pattern into the residue. It's kind of a psychic photograph. That's what triggered my hallucinations. My mind must have just taken elements from my own life and then created a situation that in many ways mirrored what happened to Pierce. If you hadn't have been there, I would have just jumped like he did. So then so we have to have the talk, and apparently the whole thing was a dream and it never happened. The night with Worf never happened. And that's the end of the episode. So if I can fix this episode, I will. I screwed up quite a few places. We'll see what happens. Please tune in next week for Genesis and the week after for Journey's End. Thank you.